What begins as a casual sit-down with a comedian quickly spirals into a verbal minefield. The lights are warm, the set styled like a cozy living room, and the mood, at first, is playful. But when Prince Harry joins Trevor Noah on What Now? What should have been a light-hearted conversation slowly unravels into one of the tensest interviews either man has faced. The jokes fade, the smiles stiffen, and the atmosphere shifts from comedy to confrontation. The set was designed to disarm. Two soft armchairs facing each other, a low table with coffee mugs, books, and lamps arranged to mimic the comfort of a friend's home. Trevor Noah opened with his trademark grin, addressing the camera before turning to his guest. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his tone playful but respectful. "He's a prince, he's a husband, he's a father, and somehow he still manages to dominate the headlines every single day. Please welcome Prince Harry." Harry walked in with the stiff smile of a man acutely aware of being watched. After a quick handshake, he leaned back in his chair, projecting control. Trevor started warmly. "Harry, thank you for being here. I know schedules are crazy, and LA, traffic can break a man's spirit. You survived, so congratulations already." Laughter rippled off camera, but Harry didn't join. "It wasn't that hard," he said flatly. "I've dealt with worse than traffic." Trevor chuckled, brushing it off. "Fair enough. Personally, I think LA traffic is a form of medieval torture. But let's start here. Life in America. You've been here a few years now. How's it treating you?" Harry smirked. "How's America treating me? The real question is, how am I treating America? I'd say I've elevated the place." Trevor raised his brows in mock surprise. "Wow, elevating an entire country? Big claim. I'm usually just happy if I can elevate my Uber driver's mood." But Harry didn't budge. "I'm not joking. My presence brings attention, headlines, influence. That's the reality." The air shifted. Trevor gave him room to soften the statement, but Harry leaned in instead. "Okay," Trevor pivoted. "Let's talk family life. Morning routines, school drop-offs, the everyday stuff people connect to." Harry gave a dry laugh. "Normal? Nothing about my life is normal. And frankly, I don't think people need to know how I take my kids to school. That's tabloid fluff." Trevor lifted his hands in mock surrender. "Fair enough. But people like the human side of public figures. If I tell people I still burn my toast every morning, suddenly I'm relatable. Doesn't mean I'm less of a comedian." "Maybe you need to be relatable," Harry shot back. "I don't." The crew shifted uncomfortably. Trevor pressed on, smile fixed but thinner now. "All right. Growing up in the royal family. Most people can't imagine that world. When you look back, what do you see?" Harry's eyes hardened. "A gilded cage. People see palaces and privilege. I see control, pressure, no freedom. A miserable way to grow up." Trevor's tone softened. "That sounds heavy. People sympathize, but some might say you benefited from that system too. Opportunities, connections. So what?" Harry cut in sharply. "I was born into it. Doesn't mean I owe it gratitude. If anything, I owe myself for surviving it." Trevor blinked, then forced a laugh. "By that logic, I owe myself a lot of money for surviving public school lunches." The crew laughed, but the tension lingered. Harry remained stone-faced. Trevor tried again. "Your mother, Princess Diana. She was beloved for her openness. Do you feel a responsibility to be that open with people who look up to you?" For the first time, Harry's smirk vanished into a glare. "Don't compare me to her. I'm not living to be some saint for the public. I'm not here to please anyone. If people don't like me, that's their problem." The room chilled. Trevor leaned back, his humor dimmed, eyes flickering with concern. As the segment wrapped, he thanked Harry for his candor, though the words rang hollow. The cozy set, no longer felt like a living room. It felt like the opening bell of a heavyweight fight. After the break, the cameras rolled again. Trevor smiled for the audience, though his eyes betrayed caution. Welcome back to What Now? We're still here with Prince Harry. And I have to say, man, you don't hold back. Which is good. My audience likes honesty. You should see them. When I try to lie about being taller than The Rock. Doesn't work, the crew chuckled. Harry only shrugged. I've never needed comedy to make myself worth listening to. Trevor's smile froze, then softened into recovery. Good thing I do. Otherwise, I'd be unemployed. He laid the joke down gently and moved on. So, let's talk about your life here in the States. You've mentioned finding peace in California. What's a typical day like? Harry scoffed. Typical? Again, with that, my days aren't typical. I don't wake up worrying about paying rent or catching a bus. I'm not living like everyone else, and frankly, I don't see why I should pretend that I am. Trevor tilted his head, the joke forming almost automatically. Okay, so what you're saying is if you were on a bus, the bus would need to bow to you before moving. The crew laughed loudly, grateful for the levity. Harry didn't even blink. If I were on a bus, it would probably make headlines. That's the reality of being me. Trevor's smile dimmed again. He leaned forward, trying a softer approach. I hear you. But don't you think part of why people tune in to conversations like this is to see the ways you are like them? Like, we all know you're not hopping on the subway every day, but people still want those small human details. Harry waved his hand dismissively. People want too much. They think they're entitled to every scrap of my life. That's why I left Britain. Constant intrusion. I'm not here to feed curiosity. I'm here to talk on my terms. The tone was colder now, sharper, and Trevor sensed the mounting chill. He shuffled his cards and tried another pivot. All right, let's go bigger then. When you look at the monarchy today, what do you see? Tradition, history, maybe something that still has meaning to the people of the UK. Harry leaned forward, his voice dripping with disdain. What I see is an outdated machine, a monarchy built on archaic rules and meaningless rituals. They dress it up as duty, but it's control. It's suffocating. Trevor pursed his lips and nodded slowly. That's heavy. But you know, there are people who would argue that you benefited from that same machine. You know, the education, the protection, the platform. Harry cut in sharply, his tone nearly condescending. Benefited? That word gets thrown around far too easily. I didn't ask to be born into it. Any so-called benefit was just the leash being gilded. The crew's quiet shuffling grew more noticeable. Trevor gave a nervous laugh, trying to ease the tension. Well, for the record, if anyone wants to put me on a leash with gold, I'd like it to at least be 24 carats. The joke landed weakly this time, the laughter more forced than genuine. Harry crossed his arms, unimpressed. Trevor pressed on, trying again. Let's talk about family. How's Megan? How are the kids? I know people are curious. Harry snapped almost instantly. People are always curious. Too curious. My wife is fine. My children are fine. And frankly, I don't think their well-being is anyone's business but ours. The idea that I need to perform my family life for an audience is absurd. Trevor held up a hand. Fair enough. I get that. I mean, even I try to keep my mom out of my stand-up routines, though she sneaks in anyway. But let me ask, you don't think there's value in sharing just a little bit so people feel connected? Harry leaned in, his eyes narrowing. Connected? That's not what they want. They don't want connection. They want access. And I refused to give it. The silence that followed was tense, heavy. Trevor shifted in his seat and tried one more light jab. Man, if this interview was a Tinder date, I think you just swiped left on the whole world. The room chuckled, but Harry shook his head slowly, lips curved in a smirk. Maybe the world deserved it. That answer sucked the laughter right out of the room. Trevor exhaled, tapping his cards against his knee. He could feel the mood curdling. The casual vibe he'd worked so hard to maintain was slipping, and Harry seemed intent on burning through every ounce of goodwill. Okay, Trevor said at last, his voice steady, but quieter now. Let's shift again. Your mother, Princess Diana, she was admired globally for her openness, for her willingness to be vulnerable. Do you feel like you carry any of that legacy with you? Harry's eyes flashed. I'm tired of being compared to her. Everyone wants to put me in her shadow or measure me against her. She lived her life. I live mine. Stop trying to make me her replacement. Trevor hesitated, his tone cautious. I wasn't trying to. Harry cut him off again, his voice rising. That's all anyone ever does. They talk about her as if I'm some copy, as if my choices should mirror hers. I'm not her. I don't owe anyone the comfort of that comparison. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Trevor swallowed and nodded, maintaining his composure. All right, that's clear. Let's move forward then. But the warmth was gone now. Trevor's jokes couldn't land. Harry's answers cut like blades, and the cozy set felt colder by the minute. Viewers at home weren't seeing a candid conversation anymore. They were watching a clash, a slow-motion train wreck with no brakes. And somewhere deep down, Trevor Noah knew the storm was just getting started. The tension in the studio could be sliced with a knife. The cozy living room set no longer looked inviting. It felt claustrophobic, like two men boxed into an invisible ring. Trevor Noah, still holding on to his trademark grin, shuffled his cards as though the next question might unlock a softer version of his guest. But Harry had already made it clear. Softness wasn't on the table tonight. Trevor leaned back and clasped his hands. Okay, let's try this a different way. A lot of people see you as someone who broke away, who redefined what it means to be part of the royal story. Do you think of yourself as an outsider now? Or are you still tied to that world in some way? Harry gave a dry laugh. No humor in it. Tied? The only thing I'm tied to is people like you asking me about it over and over again. I left. I don't look back. It's everyone else who can't let it go. Trevor tilted his head, taking a breath before replying. That's fair. But you know, from the outside, it seems like you're still very engaged. Interviews, books, Netflix deals. Some might say that's still looking back, just with a bigger paycheck. A smirk tugged at Harry's lips. Oh, is this the part where you pretend to be clever? Because I have heard this recycled line 100 times. If you think making use of my platform is the same as clinging to the past, maybe you need better material. The dig landed harder than Harry intended, or maybe exactly as hard. Trevor chuckled, though his smile falters at the edges. Better material, huh? I'll pass that on to my writers. But just to clarify, you don't think using your royal name while condemning the monarchy is a contradiction? Harry crossed his arms. I think people should stop being obsessed with contradictions. Life is complicated. I don't need to fit into your neat little boxes, Trevor. Still calm, spread his hands. No neat boxes here. Just a guy with questions. Speaking of complicated, your kids. Everyone wonders what kind of upbringing you want for them in America. Do you want them to feel part of that royal tradition, or cut off completely? Harry's jaw tightened. My children aren't a talking point for your show. They're not tabloid fodder. The fact that you even ask proves how broken this whole system is. Trevor held up his palms in mock defense. Hey, I'm not the tabloids. I'm just the guy in the armchair across from you. And people aren't asking to spy on your kids. They're asking because they admire you. They admire Meghan. They want to know how you see the future. Harry's voice turned sharp. Admiration. Spare me. The public doesn't admire. They consume. And I'm not here to serve them anymore. The air thickened. Even the crew had stopped moving around the edges of the set, eyes darting nervously between the two men. Trevor forced a light-hearted grin. Man, if I talked about my mom like that, she'd be in the comments section roasting me. But let's pivot. Meghan, how's she doing? How are you both balancing this spotlight? Harry rolled his eyes. There it is, the Meghan question. Because obviously I can't exist without her, right? Every conversation circles back to her like she's the only thing people want to hear about. I get it. She's glamorous. She's headline worthy, but I'm not her shadow. Trevor gave a soft laugh. Honestly, most husbands would kill for that level of press. If my partner had that spotlight, I'd write it straight to free Netflix subscriptions. The crew chuckled weakly, but Harry leaned forward, voice firm. It's not funny. You joke, but you have no idea how suffocating it is. Meghan and I, we're constantly dragged into the spotlight, whether we ask for it or not. Trevor nodded slowly. I hear you. I really do. But from the outside, it sometimes looks like you lean into it. The Netflix series, the podcast, it's not exactly disappearing into the background. Harry's smirk returned colder this time. So now you're lecturing me on how to live my life. Let me guess. You think I should just fade quietly into obscurity because it makes everyone else more comfortable? Trevor smiled thin. He spoke carefully, but his voice carried more weight now. Not at all. I just think when you say you want privacy, but keep making public appearances, people get confused. That's not me being judgmental. That's me reflecting what the audience is already thinking. Harry leaned back, folding his arms tightly across his chest. The audience can think whatever they want. I don't owe them clarity. I don't owe them anything. That statement landed like a slap. The air conditioning hummed audibly in the silence that followed. Trevor glanced toward the camera broom, then back at Harry, the joking mask slipping further. You know, Trevor said lightly, though his eyes had hardened, I thought this would be fun. A little banter, some laughs, maybe even a few surprises. Instead, it feels like I walked into a royal press conference with barbed wire around it. Harry didn't flinch. Maybe that's because you came in expecting me to play along. I don't play games anymore. Trevor leaned forward, setting his cards on the table. His voice was still calm, but his tone carried a warning edge. It's not a game, man. It's a conversation. And right now, it feels like you're daring me to turn it into something else. For a heartbeat, neither man spoke. The room felt smaller, darker, as if the walls themselves were leaning in. Harry's lips twitched into a faint smirk, as though he were daring Trevor to push further. Trevor sat back slowly, crossing his legs. The smile was still there, but the warmth behind it had cooled. All right then, he said softly. Let's see where this goes. And with that, the storm clouds over the what now set darkened. promising an explosion that no amount of humor could diffuse. The room had become electric, each word charged with unspoken fury. Trevor Noah's usual rhythm, playful banter wrapped in charm, had long since drained away. Across from him, Harry sat like a coiled spring, his expression unreadable, but sharp enough to cut glass. Trevor adjusted himself in his chair, leaning forward. His voice, calm but weighted, carried through. The silent studio. All right. Harry, let's strip away the pretense. You've sat here for nearly an hour, giving short, biting answers to simple questions. And you know what? I've let it slide. I crack jokes. I smooth things over. But I'm starting to wonder, why? Did you even agree to this conversation if all you wanted was to sneer at it? Harry smirked, leaning back with crossed arms, because maybe I'm tired of everyone thinking they're entitled to my soul. Every time I sit in this chair, people want raw confessions, dramatic revelations, or some neatly packaged story. I'm done playing that role. Trevor raised his brows. You call this done? This isn't honesty, Harry. It's hostility. I asked about your family, your kids, Megan, your future. You turned every one of those into a weapon. That's not pushing back. That's pushing people away. Harry's voice sharpened. Maybe people should be pushed away. They've done nothing but criticize, judge, and feed off me like vultures. The monarchy, the press, even so-called interviewers who hide behind jokes. It's all the same circus. Trevor's smile thinned until it was almost gone. A circus, huh? That's rich coming from the guy who keeps selling tickets. The books, the shows, the docuer. You built the tent yourself. Don't act like you're trapped in it. The crew shifted nervously, eyes darting between the two men as the temperature in the room seemed to rise. Harry leaned forward now, his voice low, almost a growl. You don't get it. You've never lived it. It's easy to sit there with your jokes and charm, pretending you understand. But you don't. None of you do. Trevor's jaw tightened, his patience finally fraying. He set his cards aside and clasped his hands together. You know what, Harry? You're right. I don't understand what it's like to be born into that world, but I do understand something else. Decency. And tonight, you've shown none of it. Harry's smirk faltered for the first time. Excuse me. Trevor's voice rose, not in anger, but in firm conviction. You've sat here. The world owes you respect while you show none in return. You belittled every question, dismissed every topic, and carried yourself like a spoiled kid who thinks the world is beneath him. And frankly, I've had enough. The words hit like a hammer. The silence that followed felt almost heavy, as if the air itself had been sucked out of the studio. Harry blinked, visibly caught off guard. Trevor pressed on, his tone cutting but steady. Thought maybe this was just nerves, or maybe you were having an off night. But no, this is arrogance, pure and simple. And if you think this is how you honor your mother's memory or how you build a future for your kids, you're wrong. You're not tearing down walls. You're just burning bridges. Harry's face hardened, his voice rising for the first time. How dare you? Trevor didn't flinch. He leaned forward, his eyes locked onto Harry's. No, how dare you? You came into this space, into my show, with nothing but contempt, and I was ready to laugh it off to give you the benefit of the doubt. But this isn't wit or courage. This is childishness, dressed up as rebellion. Harry's fists clenched on his lap, but Trevor kept going. I've interviewed presidents, actors, activists, people who faced storms bigger than most of us can imagine. and every one of them sat here with grace. You, you sit here dripping disdain, acting like you're too good for the chair you chose to sit in. That's not strength, Harry. That's weakness. The cameras rolled silently, capturing every moment. The crew barely breathed. Harry stood suddenly, his chair scraping against the studio floor. If this is what your show is, then I want no part of it. His voice was sharp, trembling slightly with anger. I don't need to sit here and be lectured by a comedian pretending to be a journalist. Trevor rose as well, though far calmer. He didn't match Harry's anger. He didn't need to. His words landed with the quiet force of truth. Then leave. Because the one thing this show won't do is enable arrogance. Not yours. Not anyone's. Harry's jaw worked, his face red with fury. Without another word, he turned, sharply, and stormed off the set, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. The camera stayed trained on the empty chair he left behind. Trevor exhaled slowly, then turned to the camera. His expression softened, but his voice carried a note of gravity. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you expected from tonight, but I doubt it was this. Interviews are supposed to be conversations. What we got was a wall, and I won't apologize for calling that out. What I will do is apologize to you for wasting your time on someone who clearly doesn't value it. He gave the faintest shake of his head, then sat back down, the weight of the exchange settling over the studio like a storm that had finally broken. The feed faded to black, leaving viewers everywhere stunned, replaying the confrontation in their minds. Harry had come to tell his story. Instead, he had walked away with none. If you were shocked by this dramatic showdown, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more explosive stories, and tap the bell so you never miss the next unbelievable interview moment. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming.